if you want to go, you can go. Thank you very much for coming. Good night. So, we go to... So, item 8 on the agenda is 17 Markham Moors, single-storey rear extension and summer house to rear garden. And it's Mr. Cooper again. Application for single-storey rear extension and summer house in the rear garden. Application site is in the Markham Moors conservation area. It is in one of a pair of series, brick builds with rendered panels. It has a rear extension at the moment, as you can see from here, and I'll show this in the photo, which we think was possibly the cold store, which is 4.2 metres in depth. Also to notice that the site does slope upwards along here. So it shows the setting of the site, shows the proposal, which is for a single-storey extension, which would be 4 metres by 3.05 metres in height, 4 metres in depth. The summer house would be 5.3 metres by 2.9 metres, and importantly, be only 2.5 metres in height. So the existing elevations, you have this brick wall and fence along the boundary, and then it shows the elevation on the other side. It shows the southeast elevation showing the rear of the property, and the adjoining property you will see here, the chimney, which I'll come to, because the scheme has been amended to remove the porch from the proposal, removal of enlarging the ground floor window at the front, and the depth has also been reduced from 4.25 metres to 4 metres, and also the removal of the chimney was not part of the application and has never been part of the application. So, existing floor plans, and then, as I said, you've got the existing side elevation, proposed elevation of the showing the new extension, and this extension will have a rendered panel, and then the existing wall will be retained. You can see the summer house just poking above the wall, and you can see there is a change in levels between the level which is at street level and then beyond where the actual garden is. And that shows the elevation from the other side in terms of what the neighbour would see. And it shows the rear elevation, and as I said, there is this change in levels that is actually lower into the ground, so there's this change in levels between the street scene. And the floor plan showing the extension out in terms of providing extra living space, and then at the rear the summer house that's being provided. And to note, the summer house, the reason I dwelt on the height of being 2.5 metres, because that is the threshold for what would be permitted development. Well, I'll come to that in a minute. So, photos showing the front of the house. This is a photo that shows the chimney and shows the front. Shows the rear elevation, this change in levels, and you can see the what we think is where coal is stored. The outbuilding shows it more recently, and you will note the chimney is no longer part of the house. Shows the slope upwards. This structure here belongs to the neighbouring property. So this is the elevation, so the extension will go into this area here, and then you have the summer house about here at this point. So coming to the main issues here. Firstly, whether the proposal will have an impact on the visual amenity and character of the conservation area, and secondly, whether the proposed development would have a detrimental impact on the amenity of adjoining neighbours. So taking the first issue, in terms of visual impact, to consider that because it replaces an existing structure, it's actually lower. It has wood cladding on Muscombe Road. Heritage advisors have no objection. and it's part of what is allowed within the conservation area in terms of allowing single-storey rear extensions. In terms of the summer house, the distance away from the extension is such that it would not overly dominate the site and would be hidden behind the wall because of the changed levels, particularly from the street scene. So on that basis, it's considered that it would not harm the visual amenity of the character of the area. And the second issue, which is the impact on the amenity of the neighbours. The depth is only 4 metres, which is in accordance with the council's design guides, in terms of what the council considers to be reasonable for people to extend their properties, and is orientated so that it would not have a detrimental impact on the amenity of that neighbour. In terms of the summer house is located down and below the property on Muscombe Road, and is also what would be permitted development. So significant weight needs to be given to the fact it would have been permitted development anyway. So on that basis, the recommendation is to grant. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Can I call Mr. Short, please? Russell Short, would you like to come up? Are any of the microphones that are working? I'll switch on the microphone. You've got 3 minutes.
Sorry, Steve, before that jumps in, I thought I'd agree with Mr. Cooper that I'd speak in favour as well, but my name's not down on the list as a speaker.
If you've not registered,
well, I thought I had with Mr. Cooper on the email, but
can we deal with Mr. Short first?
I'm on the agent for this, Steve. So
You're the agent?
Yeah.
Well, okay. Mr. Short?
Yes.
Can you tell us where you live?
Yeah, we're number 20, Markham Moors.
What number?
20.
20. Okay, further on the road.
Yeah, we're 1, 2, third house up.
Yeah, we've got 3 minutes.
Yeah, the residents and I, what we're worried about is, first of all, on the plans it states that the chimney was there and to be supported in the roof. But next minute we saw was the chimney was taken off. We brought it up to the attention of the councillor. He was told the reason it was taken down was because it was unsafe because the previous tenant. We would all like to see the engineer's report on that, because it does impact the skyline of Markham Moors being in a conservation area, because it looks different compared to the rest. And as we've always thought, you can't change anything without planning permission and being put forward so that everybody could comment. But the next minute we know, planning permission was put in and it was passed on the same day. So no one had the chance, and that was after the chimney had been taken down. The second thing we're all worried about, which we'd already brought up, because there's one more house in Markham Moors that have got the same coloured windows, is when other people have had their windows changed, they've had to have white UPVC. These are now either a grey or black, which impacts on the rest of the houses, which under conservation, it shouldn't be detrimental to the rest of the houses, it should be in keeping. Those are the only two objections that I've been asked to bring up.
Okay. Finished, thank you very much indeed. Okay. He's not registered though, is he? Yeah. Well, in openness and fairness, would you like to come forward? What's your name?
George
So
Carver.
you're finished, Mr. Short. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. It's George Carver.
Come up to the microphone, please. Can't hear you.
My name's George Carver. Thank you for.
You're saying you're the agent.
I'm the agent for the application
Application.
and the architect.
Well, at my discretion, I will allow you fairness to speak then.
Thank you. Yeah, apologies for not registering correctly. So, as I said, I'm the agent and the architect of the project and director of the practice, George Carver Architects. I have more than 10 years of architectural design experience working for AJ100 architectural design firms and more recently my own studio. The brief from the applicant was to modernise the internal layout with a new bedroom, ensuite and an enlarged open-plan kitchen, living dining space to create a better living environment for the family. To achieve this, the scheme proposes a single-storey rear extension with bifold doors and a flat roof with roof lights. The single-storey rear extension is of a similar size and scale and appearance to the existing brick storage room that it is replacing. The existing building is located in the Mark Hall North Conservation Area, which, according to the Council's supplementary planning guidance documents, is characterised by 2 stories semi-detached and terraced dwellings with pitch roofs and rendered to the front and rears generally and gable ends in brick. The submitted scheme impacts on none of these fundamental and characterising elements. The proposal extends 3.95 metres from the rear wall. I won't actually go over too many things. I think the keeper has covered those. In terms of the materials, we are matching the brickwork to the existing building. There's a timber panel in the side elevation and dark grey standing seam zinc metal to the rear with dark grey framed bifold doors, creating a high quality, contemporary and complementary appearance that is concealed from the street by the brick facades. We've worked with Harlow Planning Authority to arrive at a scheme which is supported by officers and represents a policy compliant, modest householder extension. A number of the revisions to the proposal included the raising of the sill to the front window to its original position, removal of a front porch, reducing the height of the rear extension by 0.15 metres, moving the front wall to the party wall boundary line with its adjacent number 19 and reducing the length of the extension by 0.25 metres. The modest scale and size of the proposal alongside the sympathetic palette of materials has been carefully considered and developed with the planning officers to be a home renovation that is demonstrably policy compliant and keeping with the area which preserves the special character and appearance of the conservation area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, did we get your name?
That should be George Carver.
George
Carver, C-A-L-V-E-R.
Carver. Okay. Thank you. Members, questions and clarifications? Councillor Davis?
It always concerns me whether, in fact, people are acting in good faith. Now, I'm understanding that the neighbour is claiming that the windows have already been replaced from the white windows to the grey windows, or is it still just a planning application? Do we know from the photos that you took and so on?
This is a photo from a while back, so I understand that it has now, from what has been said, it has changed. What I would say is that those works are firstly outside the scope of the application for members, and secondly, they are works that would not require planning permission. Equally, the same issue applies to the loss of the chimney, which is not, as set out within the report, is not a material alteration to the external appearance of the dwelling, and this does not require planning permission as well, and is also outside the scope of this application.
Councillor, you okay? Councillor Clark?
Is it still the case that there's an encroachment on the neighbour's property?
As Mr. Calvert said in his presentation, plans have been amended to ensure that there is no encroachment on the adjoining property. No encroachments. The plans were amended to make it absolutely clear that there is no encroachment on the adjoining property.
Councillor Davis?
Yes, Chair, I was going to ask the same question, but I just want to make a point that the first man that spoke said he spoke to a councillor about this application. I just want to make it clear it wasn't me he spoke to, so I don't know who he's spoken to. But we can't debate now.
No, I assume it's probably Councillor Carter.
He should never do it.
Okay, anybody else got questions?
My question was regarding the point that Mike raised and it's been covered.
Yes, okay. That's all right. Yeah, can I just ask the one? Well, I think you've answered that. Sorry, microphone. Sorry. Was about the windows, because on the relevant planning history, you've got an application that came in, but it says not yet determined.
You're right to point out that there is actually an application to change the windows from white to grey, and as I've said, it's our view that it doesn't require planning permission. That doesn't mean people can apply for things that they think require planning permission. So sometimes we get applications for things that don't require permission, with applications being submitted. That application will be determined in the normal way. My advice is that it's something that would not require planning permission.
Okay. Thank you very much. Discussions? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. From my understanding, it's that we've got no planning grounds to turn this down. Although I don't like it, to be honest. I've been and visited the site and it's looked like Steptoe's yard. It's such a mess down there, so I hope they're going to carry on in that vein. So I don't think you can object to it. I don't like it, but I think we've got to say it's accurate.
Councillor Clark?
Well, I'm concerned about this. It is an iconic area because it's the first one that's built in the town, isn't it, in the conservation area. And periodically, as Councillor Carter reminds us, people are taken down there deliberately. It's in the conservation area, it's a show area. And so one has to have a meticulous approach to the planning, and this doesn't seem to follow that. I mean, they have amended it from being what the Heritage Officer calls bulky and awkward. Well, it's just less bulky and awkward, but it's still presumably bulky and awkward. And the summer house actually is large and it is prominent and not altered at all. So I'm still a bit concerned about this. I'm still in the course of making my mind up, to be honest on it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Very briefly, I visited the site and I quite used the description you used, Councillor Davis, but it is a bit of a mess, but they're not the building sites are. I actually looked over the brick wall to see the spaces, but I think that's the nature of the business, isn't it? Building works, you can get a mess, and then hopefully at the end of the day, it's all nice and spick and span and is as we think, So, so that's my comment. So with that, if there's no further comments, which there doesn't appear to be, we'll go to the, we've got one amendment to the conditions here, which is the working hours directive. No, it's not. No, we've got working hours on this one, haven't we? Yep. Sorry, the paper's muddled up here. So page, recommendation on page, oh sorry, recommendation on page 23, which is to grant planning permission. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstention? So one against, so that's granted.